welcome, John, and thank you very much for having this conversation with me that we can share with the pastors of the Dutch Reformed Church that participate in this kind of learning experience and the journey around that. So when we spoke for the first time the other day, you told me about this deeply spiritual experience that you had in October last year. So I wonder whether you can take us back to that day and actually your experience on the day of the 16th of October.
Thank you so much, Hanna. And also, just for me to say, it's my great privilege to be contributing to a wonderful work that you are doing and just touching hearts and equipping, especially the church to be able to handle this different situation. I think you're doing an outstanding work. But yes, I almost get tears in my eyes when I think about the experience, in particular, the one that I had during the 16th of October. I actually had only two similar experiences like that. The first one, it was when I encountered the Lord, and I had to change my course as a young man and to serve the Lord. And it was a very special moment. I remember I was on my way to a function, to a disco. During those days, we used to have discos in the township. And I was working with my friends, and we were so excited because we already had dates, young people. Mm-hmm. And fortunately enough, it was actually the function was in the school hall. So we had to pass the community hall for us to get to the school hall. And that particular day, there was a revival there in my hometown, Oos-Kaapland, a small place here next to Senekal. It's about 30 km from Senekal. And I gave my life to the Lord that day. And, immediately I just felt something grabbing my heart. And I told my friends, I'm not gonna make it to the disco. I went straight back home, and it was around 9 o'clock, and I went straight into my room. And yes, I cried almost the whole night. My mom was confused. Everyone was confused in the house. They didn't understand what was happening. I didn't also understand what was happening. I just had this passion, but I was not crying because I was hurt or negative emotions, but it was something divine. And that's how my life changed, and I've never looked back since then. And that was in 1998 when that happened. And when it happened for the second time now here in Senekal on the 16th of October, I was in the middle of the business of that day. Senekal was covered with red T-shirts and khakis all over, and it was one of the terrible days that we've ever had here in Senekal. The tension, you could cut it even with a scissor. It was thick. And I remember I was waiting the street next to the street where the supporters of an EFF supporters were gathering. They came in numbers here in Senekal, and they were waiting for their leader to come out to address them. And I was just sitting in my car. What was important for me that day, it was just, God, if you can just save us for this day. That's all we ask. Just give us a miracle. Let's just survive today. We don't want to see a civil war breaking out. And that was my heart desire. I was not desiring anything. And as I was sitting in the car, I remember vividly so, there was a song, a struggle song that they played the EFF people, they played on the speakers, and people started to sing that struggle song. But as you know, I know these struggle songs. I mean, I grew up in the township. All these struggle songs, and I've never had a problem with them, especially being a Black young person and also growing up during the times of oppression. But that particular day, when I heard the struggle song and the sound of it, it was different in my ears. And it was almost like a war cry, but not a positive one, a war cry from the enemy. Mm-hmm. And I'm now speaking as a pastor as well. A demonic spirit making a war against the nation of South Africa, against the peace in this land, against the God-given destiny for this nation. And immediately when I received that interpretation in my spirit, I went into a passionate cry, similar to the one that I had when I gave my life to the Lord. And I was crying my heart out. And as I was crying, I felt that in my heart, I felt the Lord was saying, this is what I feel about South Africa. And this is what I feel about Africa. This is the pain that I feel in my heart for what is happening. And I'm looking for people who can stand in the gap, who can build a bridge. Mm-hmm. Would you take the call to stand in the gap and to heal the broken bridge that the enemy has broken in societies, in communities, in nations, and the brokenness that we experience in Africa? And then I realized right there and then that God was calling me officially into the ministry of reconciliation. And that is for me a defining moment, because I knew that I had to stand. You know, when I started with facilitating the peace process in Senekal, it was just me just doing my part, just somebody standing up and doing something before the whole town is broken. I wasn't expecting anything than that. After the 16th of October, I was waiting. I couldn't wait to get back to my life and to go about my life. But then I realized that the Lord had a bigger plan. Mm-hmm. So yes, that is the miracle for me on that day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. Can you maybe just tell us very briefly about that peace process? What exactly is happening in Senekal? Yes. Now it is the end of March, so yes. It's 5 months after the 16th of October. So if you can just share with us a little bit about what has been happening subsequently.
Yes. Thank you, Anna. And this is also very interesting, because even the way the Lord has led me and my wife to get involved in the whole situation. It was clear from the beginning that the hand of God was involved in this. I remember, I'm not going to tell you the whole story. It's a long story. I'm actually writing a book about this God story, and I hope that I can share that with you once the book is finalized. But after the whole thing happened, because we were at the march, me and my wife. We were one of the few African people or Black people in the march, because that is also a sign to show that we are so much divided in our communities. But that is a story for another day. So we went there because we felt we need to give solidarity to the farmers, to the plight of the farmers, but also to give a support to the family. And I remember when the incident unfolded, unfortunate situation unfolded there, where the police van and vehicles were rolled over, and the whole story. My heart broke, because I wasn't expecting that. I knew that people were very emotional, but I wasn't expecting that, that would be a tipping point. It would be the pot just boiling over. Immediately when we got home, I felt the Lord said, go over to the mountain. We've got a hill here in Senekal. We now call it a prayer hill. And I felt, I always go there to pray. And I felt the Lord say, go and pray, go and seek for my face. And we went up to the hill and we prayed. We were praying for the peace of God over Senekal, because the situation was now out of hand. And immediately as I was praying, I felt the Lord said, bring together community leaders. That will be your political leaders, your residential association leaders, everyone, black and white. And as I felt in my heart, yes, this is a big challenge. I don't think people will respond to a meetings like that, especially in a time like this. But I had courage. I had to obey, and I started to make phone calls. And to my surprise, almost everyone agreed to the meeting. And people, we met the following day, and that's how the forum actually started. That now is doing a work here at Senekal Matwabeng Forum. And even that, during that meeting, we really saw the hand of God, because it started very emotional and people wanted to tear each other apart. You have farmers there, very, very tough farmers, and they are very emotional about the whole thing. And you also have EFF members there and other political parties who feel that they need to defend whatever, for the God knows the reasons they wanted to defend. But in the middle of the meeting, something happened, and God turned the meeting around. And we ended up with every leader in that meeting giving their commitment, working together to pick up the pieces in Senekal, because this was now bigger than ourselves. It was bigger than our own emotional opinion. It was about the town. It was about what could go wrong, and that's how the whole thing started. And of course, when we finished with the meeting, it was exciting. I still have those photos of the meeting, and we were so excited about the achievement. And then that evening, Malema, which is the leader of the EFF, made an announcement that on the 16th of October they will be coming down. And mind you, the local EFF had planned a march on that Friday because of what has happened. And because of the negotiation in the meeting, they declined. They said, we're not gonna carry on with our march, because we want to give the committee or the forum an opportunity to facilitate and to restore order in Senekal. But then the national EFF says, no, we're coming. So that changed the whole ball game. And then I felt in my heart I needed to take this battle now in the spirit. And that's when we brought the church leaders together, dominies and pastors and reverend. And then we organized a prayer meeting where we were praying. And I think at that time also the whole body of Christ, the church, was already praying for Senekal all over in the nation. And I also have friends, beyond the borders of South Africa and even in the overseas, and people were just praying for Senekal. And a miracle happened on the 16th of October when the enemy was planning to launch a full-fledged civil war in South Africa. And then God just came and intercepted him and destroyed the whole plan. And we thought the 16th of October was just God stopping the enemy. We didn't anticipate that he was stopping the enemy, but also at the same time, he was starting something incredible that will have a ripple effect across our nation. And that's what we are experiencing now, especially with the work of the forum that has started to mobilize the community in Senekal to restore this town, and people are coming together and they are working together to clean the place and to restore what the enemy has broken. And as they do that, they are not only fixing potholes, but they are also fixing relationships, and people are getting to know each other more and better now. And we see relationship now, new relationship beginning to form between, especially between the white and the black community. Not that we had such a problem before, but we never had an opportunity where we can work together and we can actually, for the first time, say, you know what, we need each other. We need each other, not only in this community, but even in our country, we need each other to turn things around. And this is the miracle, not only for Senekal, but it's a miracle for the whole of our nation. So I'm excited because even tomorrow we're gonna clean one of the park here close to my place here in town. So we are getting on with the work, and it's exciting. Always in every project, we see more and more people coming in and to volunteer their time and their skills and their resources. I mean, Senekal is now a totally different place.
That is just amazing. It's really such a powerful and at the same time such a humbling story. You know, how you managed to kind of pull yourself back from the brink, really, of something quite terrible. Well, I mean, terrible things had already happened at that stage, but it could have gotten so much worse then.
It's true. It's true.
But so John, I want to ask, because you are here now.
Yes.
But you come from somewhere, and you must have been a boy at the end of apartheid, if I understand you correctly. And you know the struggle songs, and you grew up in the township, in that area. So I have two questions. The one is how did the regime of that time influence your family, the people with whom you grew up, the people in your community, your grandparents and your parents? And then the other question that leads from that, of course, is how did you get here where you are today, and you tell the story about this reconciliation? So those are the two things that I'm so curious about.
Yeah, yeah, Hanna, I tell you, it's really an interesting story. I mean, I was born in 1980. I mean, I'm not that old, and but during that time already, I was born in during the apartheid dispensation, and growing up. Actually, I was born on a farm, and I grew up on the farm there in a small community of Rosendal. And growing up as a young Black South African during that time, immediately, I think when you hit 10 years, 11 years, then you realize that you are different. You know, you're not like the rest of the people who are part of South Africa, especially in the white community and other races that were prioritized during that time. And immediately that has a psychological effect on you as a person, because you look also at the environment that you live in. I mean, during that time on the farms, I mean, you're living on the mud houses, and although I always say to people, you know, if I really think back on my boyhood, for strange reasons, it's one of the best moments that I would, you know, give everything just to have the feeling of growing up in an environment that was free as a young boy. But when you grow up and you start to go to school, then reality hits you, you realize that, you are really very far off behind in comparing to other races within South Africa. And that has got, as I said, that's got a psychological effect on you. I mean, you start to have a low self-esteem, and that is one of the things that I personally struggled with, especially when you find yourself in different races, in the mix of different races, and you have to give your opinion or a speech or something like that. I mean, I struggled with that for many years, and thank to God, to one of my mentors, who also happened to be a white lady by the name of Nelmarie Inglesby, and in fact, her surname is Van der Merwe, yes. And she took me in and she trained me. I mean, I owe everything to that lady, and she helped me to get out of that inferiority complex. And she taught me things that I wouldn't have learned if I continue growing in my community alone. I mean, he taught me how to behave on the table manners, when you are invited in somebody's home, how to behave, how to speak properly, how to express yourself in a proper way. I mean, she has been a blessing, and I think God sent her because God wanted to prepare me for what I'm doing today. And that is the situation. Even with my family, if I look back into my family and my mom, I mean, I grew up without a father, which also is something to talk about on another day. But my mom was a very strong woman, and she has always had a strong opinion, even though she was a domestic worker. But she was one of the few domestic ladies that could maintain almost like a same level with her boss. I mean, just the way she would speak to her boss, there was nothing inferior about her. I mean, she was fluent in Afrikaans. She was a strong woman. And I mean, growing up, also seeing that, I think it has also an effect on me, although the circumstances that were rather negative really prevailed more than what she was trying to model, because I couldn't make sense of, even though you can fight with your boss and you can tell your boss your peace of mind, but I mean, you still a domestic worker, she can fire you anytime, and they did in most cases, because she had a very strong personality. She wouldn't hold a job for that long because it was difficult during those days. But I mean, you grow up in that environment, and that is also somehow the society in that community is actually perpetuating that feeling of inferiority complex and fear. I remember the other day on the farm, and we wanted to go out and play with, the white boys and just to have fun. I mean, just the people in the village, how they threatened you, don't go there and don't go and play with those people. They're not like you. You'll get yourself in trouble. And that is forming some kind of a psychological fear in your head, as a young boy. Immediately, it's like somebody's telling you that you are different from them. And it's not even them telling you that you are different, because I never had a direct confrontation with racism. I can't remember an incident where, a white folk confronted me or even called me names. But it is the community that is actually teaching you that, because they also grew up in that environment, and that's all they know.
Like a collective fearfulness.
It's a collective fearfulness. Yes, it's a collective fearfulness that results from the oppression, maybe the segregation, and all those things.
I also think that segregation that you're speaking about is an important thing, because the fear takes on a kind of a life of its own, doesn't it? And there isn't enough contact to kind of dispel that.
Yes.
The fear, and it simply grows. It starts with real experiences of oppression, but then because of the separateness allows it to flourish, the fear and the suspicion.
It's so true. If I may come into that, and it's so true what you're saying, because one of the things that Nelmarie did to help me to get out of that fearful environment and complexity, she didn't sit me down and teach me that, I need to be confident of myself, and I need to know that I've got a value. She didn't start with that. But what she did, she started to expose me. She took me, we traveled with her. We went to Eastern Cape to meet some of her friends there, and she gave me opportunity to share the word. And it wasn't easy, but that exposure helped me to peel off that inferiority complex and the fear. Because when I was exposed to a different environment, then I realized that, after all, we are the same. We are human beings, and we've got the same needs, emotional needs, and that empowered me. And then slowly I could regain my confidence and my worth as a human being. And I think that has been an incredible journey for me. So yes, I agree with you.
So we are very grateful for Nelmarie in your life.
Very much, very much. She's still alive, and I still talk to her now and then, and she still has a voice in my life. She's the one person that can get strict with me, and she can tell me where to get off. And I've never been offended with her. I tried several times to run away from her, but every time I try to run away, I end up with her.
Yes, she's like your lodestar in a way, isn't she?
No, for sure. She's such a blessing.
Yeah. But what I also hear in the story that you tell is this whole idea of the peeling off of inferiority, that what she really created was an environment that allowed your natural ability to flourish, just get on with it.
It's true. That is exactly what she has actually, because I knew that I had a potential, I had passions, I had stuff that I would love to do. But it seems like this fear was a blockage. It was a stumbling block before me. I remember we went on this trip for the first time, and we met some friends of hers down in the Eastern Cape, and then we came back. It was a wonderful experience for me. And then some people heard that we were there, and they heard about the ministry that we had there, and they wanted us to come back. In like 2 weeks we've been back, and she said, "We're going again, John, let's go down again." So the first time when we went down, she was doing the job. She was doing the ministry and everything, and I was so comfortable just to be in the shadow and to serve her, and wasn't expecting anything. And second time around when we went down, when I remember when we got to this small town called, I forgot the name, but anyway, she decided that, John, I'm not going down to Craddock with you. You're going to go on your own. So you're gonna now do what I did the first time when we went there. Yo, I tell you, I almost fainted. Yo, it was one of the most difficult news for me to process. No, I can't, Miss Nelly. No, it's impossible. I can't do this alone. I mean, how am I even gonna get there? You know, and she always had this thing. She always had this voice. John, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it. And I just knew that I'm not getting out of this one. And I started to do my prayers. And I tell you, that night I never stopped praying. And the next thing, I was on my way down to Craddock, and then I met one of those wonderful people. But you know, you still have that fear in you. And you know, I remember when I had to come in to give a ministry, and I was praying, and I just said to God, I want to give you my fear. I'm tired of just carrying this fear in my heart, and I'm laying it before you. I'm just going to go out there, and I'm just going to trust you that you will do the job. And that became the biggest breakthrough in me dealing with my fear. And I mean, I've never looked back after that. And God just continued to open more doors. And it has become my passion also to help, especially people who are coming in similar communities as myself, just to equip them and to help them how to get out of that fear, because there are so many, you know, incredible and talented young people and young men and women with incredible talent and potential and gift. But because of that fear that has been inherited, because I think most of this fear, especially my generation, we have inherited it, you know. It was never something that was enforced directly to us by the regime, but it was inherited from the parents, from the society and the community that we grew up in.
Hmm. Yes, and that is exactly what collective and ancestral trauma means, is this inherited fear, as if the enemy is alive and well and right there with you, wherever you are. And I think that is the kind of the shackles that needs to be broken and loosened, you know. Yeah.
If I may come into that, Hanna, you know, I always, when I talk to people about our response or reactions to this, I say there's always two ways that people react out of this fear. And now I'm talking about from where I'm coming from. Some people are lucky enough, you know, to have these shackles cut off from their lives. If they get a good mentorship and people that exposes them and give them the right exposure, like I have been so blessed. But most people, they never had people to take them through and to help them to deal with the trauma. But then what they do is that they react, instead of them dealing with the actual fear, they develop anger. And that becomes their reaction to dealing with the past trauma and the racism and all that. And that's why you will find, unfortunately, in South Africa, where, for an example, if a Black person is doing something wrong, and a white folk comes and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be driving like that, immediately the reaction is anger. And the whole thing is immediately politicized. Hey, I'm not, you know, this is not apartheid time. And, you know, and that is actually the problem that we are sitting with, because we have more of our population still trapped into this trauma psychologically and emotionally. And they don't know how to deal with it, how to process that. And it is my heart, and I really am very much inspired by what you're also doing, just to help people to say, you know what, it's really not about the person standing before you. It's not even about the color of that person. It's really about something that you need to deal with, because if you didn't have that fear, if you didn't have that trauma, you wouldn't have reacted the way you would react. You would actually stop and think, okay, am I doing something right or am I doing something wrong? And if you feel you're not doing something wrong, then you will respond to a person and say, but I think you got me wrong. I mean, this is not what you think is happening, instead of reacting with anger and violence.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a reactive response. So,
Yes.
so there is the healing of that wound that needs to be required. And I imagine also the demystifying of the other, of one another. I think that's one of the important things that we need to do in this country, is to demystify the other who is perceived to be all powerful or all destructive and all dangerous.
Because even that, no, you can go.
Thank you so much, John. It's such a powerful testimony. And I hope that we will be able to have many more conversations. Thanks.